All right. Hello, everyone. I'm John, and here I wanted to explore something. My friend Guy in the Strategy OMK channel has said that he is willing to rant, potentially for up to an hour, about why George sucks. Guy, could you please perhaps give some credentials to your George accolades, mayhaps?
All right. Hello, everyone. It's me, Guy. Renowned OMK player. Fourth best in the world, the Western world at least. And I have been playing OMK since 1.0, and George probably since Cross, or early Cross. I played him for several years. I don't remember the exact time frame because I wasn't really keeping track, but it was several years. And during that time, I attempted to extract every ounce of viability from the man. And at the end of it all, I came to the conclusion that, well, he is a flaming pile of garbage in a red suit. And if you don't play the red color, then you're not a real George player. So there's that.
Oh wow, those are some pretty harsh words, real broadside of the vernacular. So, okay, Guy. Now, I play this game too, and I have to say that I'm not entirely sure. I think George is pretty bad. I think that I'm going to take the approach of this being just pretty normal, right? But just looking at this from a non-George enthusiast, because for some reason, George really seems to attract a lot of people. Do you have any reasons why this might be? I personally think it might just be because of his character from the visual novel is very very striking.
You mean players or proponents, or what do you mean?
Mostly there are players of George. There are people that just seem to like him. Like any reasons why this is? Like
Well,
there,
I think
Mhm.
it's very misleading because, well, he's very flashy. His animations are very exaggerated and over the top. And you look at him and you look at his kid and you see somebody playing him perhaps, and you're like, oh, this is a nice, fun, fast, mix-up oriented character, and it draws you in. It's a honey trap. It's a Venus flytrap, a fly amanita.
Okay. So there's something I really agree with before we get into more of the meaty girth, I suppose, of what exactly you have to say. Because I have no doubt that you must have a lot to say. Because to the people listening, uh, as a joke, a guy mentioned this in like the strategy channel for OMK. But then I said, "Hey guy, do you actually think that you can rant for George for like an hour? Like we record it and everything?" And he was like, "Yes, I do." So I think that's amazing. But one thing you've said before is that George is very much a kind of noob stomper, a scrub killer. I think is a, a more
Oh
apt term
yes,
I've heard. So care to
yes.
explain why you think that?
Well, the thing is, George has a very few options that are moderately powerful and, can be used to force situations that if you don't know how to deal with them will feel oppressive, I'd say. And in addition to that, he has a lot of technology, so to speak, that are gimmicks. There's a lot of little tricky little things that he can do that if you don't know like how they work or what's happening precisely, then it will be very difficult for you to deal with them. Of course, the caveat is once you know how they work, they probably aren't going to work at all, basically. So, new players, people who are new to the game, who haven't had a lot of experience in the George matchup, will come up against these gimmicks and be
Hmm.
like, "Oh, this character is stupid. This, like, what am I supposed to do? This is unblockable. I can't. He just mixes me up every single time. What am I supposed to do?"
Hmm.
Of course, that is not actually the case. uh, after you get some experience under your belt.
Yeah, he's kind of like like you know that owl that like puffs up and makes itself look really big and intimidating, or like a
Hmm.
puffer fish or something like that. That's kind of how I think, because he'll just like roll around and you don't really realize, hey, I can just kind of hit this guy with this bullshit, things like that. But
Hmm.
okay, because I actually think that this might attribute to George's like some of his flair, because he certainly looks pretty cool when you're playing him, and you know his ridiculous run animation and just like how he stands there, like what's that martial art? It's capoeira, the
Yeah,
dancing one.
capoeira. Yeah.
Yeah, he almost looks like that. Like he's like, yeah, I'm ready to do some stuff. And you know, George is just ridiculous. You know, his scene in episode 4 against Gap was pretty cool. So maybe to me at least, that's what has given me a bit of interest in George. But
Hmm.
let's start, because again, an hour, right? We're at 6 minutes, so I hopefully you have a lot to say, because uh
Oh, I have a lot to say.
all right.
I can go over every single normal that he has, and special, and meta.
Okay, let's start with the basics. Let's start with the A normals, all right? Grounded A normals.
Well, I mean, I'd like to start. I mean, even further than that. I mean, I'd like to start at just the basic conceptual
Oh, wow.
level of George.
the, the
You know.
progenitor of George, the the primordial soup that is George. Okay,
Well,
man, let's
it's
do it.
because I think. Well, no, because I think George as a character is inherently flawed. You know, from like purely speaking, a design uh, aspect in OMK, what they have created is vastly different from what is portrayed. You know, by all reasonable, observations, we'll say, all reasonable aspects of appearances, George should be like I said, like a mix up, like a rush down character, right? Like a tricky kind of, oh, which way am I gonna go? I'm gonna put you in the blender, like what a Buki or whatever from like Street Fighter or something like that.
Yeah, like
Some
a
other,
vortex character, I think they're
yeah,
called.
Vortex character. That's what they're called. But the thing is, they have somehow failed to provide him with any tool that could reasonably be used like competently in that fashion. What they have given him is a variety of tools that have that appearance but have no substance. No meaningful substance, we'll say. Right? Because I mean,
Wow.
you look at him and it's like even from the onset, he has like this walk speed and it's like this is pretty good. Like it's not like the best walk speed in the game, but it's all right. He has this super long, incredibly long backdash that just goes like so fucking far, like 3 character lengths. You know, decently fast, we'll say, which is a
Hmm.
bit weird for a mixed down character. Like, why does a mixed down character or mix up character have like a good backdash? That seems a little strange. And his dash, not the fastest, not the slowest, just average, which seems a bit weird. Like, hey, Lucifer has like a really fast dash, also a really fast walk speed.
Hmm.
Cannon, pretty fast dash. You know, these characters that rush people down have the speed to rush people down. Not George though. Why is that? Why is that? Well, you say, oh, well, he has a variety of other mobility options, right? You look
Yeah.
at him, you know, all of his normals, with the exception of A, of course, move him forward, and 2B, I guess, which is a little weird, actually, now that I think about it. Why is 2B stationary? Why does 2B suck so much? Is the follow up question, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah. Let's not get
Yeah.
ahead of ourselves.
But 5B, 5C, 2C, 6C, you know, and the six normals in general all move him forward. You're like, okay, maybe I'm supposed to like do some like crazy Street Fighter footsies, give him the shuffle. and then like whiff punish them. But like nobody plays like that in OMK. That's not a thing that you can do. And a big reason for that is because, well, like a lot of characters, especially like the good ones, or even the better ones, we'll just say in general, have what we call the sword normals, which is, normals whose hitbox does not have a hurt box in them. And what that means is for a poor young martial artist like George, who is risking his own life and limb out here with his attacks, throwing caution to the wind, waging his very life on the line with his attacks. Uh,
Hmm.
Lucifer or Erica are just going to throw out their giant lightsaber blades and hit him as he's trying to do some crazy capoeira kick on them.
Hmm.
And so, they're out here, and Erica may be a bad example because she has among the better normals in the game. But I'd say even like,
Oh, even Battler,
uh,
like.
yeah, even Battler, like he's out here, he's throwing out a 5B, in neutral, or even like in a defensive position. He's throwing out a 5B. He's throwing out a 2B. It's like those moves are so fast that like are you what do you like as George, you're supposed to be like, oh, okay, I'm shuffling. Oh, he just did a 5B. Oh, I do a 5B. Oh, wait, he's already blocking. Or he does a 2B. I'm standing, doing a shuffle. Oh, I 5B. Oh, he did 2B. He goes under my 5B.
Yeah, that people who might not understand, you might think this man is just insane. Why does he hate George? But I actually have on the visual here a demonstration of the 5B, and you see how he kicks up there. Yeah, this move really doesn't go very low. The hitbox, it's not made in a sensical way. It follows his foot very much. So yeah, you can indeed just go under this move like with a lot of characters. I believe even George himself could probably go under it with his own like 2C.
Oh yeah, definitely, 100%. And it's baffling, you know. I mean, we'll start here because we're already talking about it. Of like the frames on 5B are pretty reasonable. Like you do it and it's like, oh, this is pretty fast, right? But then the actual hitbox is so bad that it's completely like useless in, I would say, 70 to 75% of situations where you would want to use a move like this.
Hmm.
The hitbox is so bad you can't anti-air with it.
Yeah, it doesn't go
You
high
know,
enough, right? It
doesn't
goes
go. Yeah.
it goes up enough to not be good at hitting people crouching and lows, but not high enough to like anti-air anything meaningful, unless they're dumb and just land in front of you and aren't hitting a button. It's so ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's not high enough to anti-air. It gets low profiled by like anything, and then even worse, it's like if you if you do manage to whiff punish somebody with this, you're probably like near max range, and then it's like really hard to confirm because if you like whiff punish somebody, or even like counter hit them at max range with 5B, it can be like, yeah, like 5C will whiff.
Yeah, I'm noticing that actually.
So you have to confirm into 2C, which like really drastically reduces your damage on a confirm, right? Unless you spend like meter.
Hmm.
And even then, So there's even that. So already we're talking about like the concept of George's character, and we're already here like at this weird like, oh well, this just like doesn't work. Like like what am I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and it's not working. Well, okay, maybe that's not what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, that's a reasonable assumption.
Yeah,
So then you look at like,
what
yeah.
else is there?
So you look at like, okay, well then am I supposed to be doing? And the question just revolves in your head, and you think about it for a long time, and you're like, I don't know.
Hmm.
And to lead into that, I mean, we'll start with like, oh well, to wrap things up, his jump is, I mean, kind of all right. Like, it's not super floaty. It's not. It's a little high. It's like whatever. George's air normals are probably by far among the better things about him, but
Hmm.
we'll talk about that later. So, like, starting with his normals, right? You have his A normals. You got far 5A, and that's like this dinky little kick, decent range for a 5A. But look at, like, take a look at the hitbox. Why is it like down here at the waist? Like, what are you doing with that? Why would you want a 5A there? You know, like what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah, because
Am I like poking people with this or?
most like standing A moves can sort of function as a bit of an anti-air, at least up close.
Right, right, right. And it's like, Battler's is a good example. His Far 5A is a decent anti-air if you're, spacing it right. And so it's like, okay, well, whatever. I guess this is some weird like poke or like check move that I check people with. And I don't remember the frame data off the top of my head, but I don't think it's even like plus. It might be neutral. It might be like -1 even. And you're like, okay, well, that doesn't matter too much because it's an A move, right? You can just cancel it. But then you're like canceling into his other normals, which has its own bevy of problems. But then it's like, okay, then you have close 5A. And I don't want to like punch down because a lot of characters, the close and the far system is already flawed on a lot of characters in the first place. So I'm not gonna really talk too much about like his close A, but just to put a lid on it, like
Hmm.
it's a punch, and you're like, okay, it's higher. So maybe that's the anti-air option because a lot of that's a lot of design artifacts. We'll say, um, artifacts of a previous design cycle is usually how I like to describe it. There's a lot of characters who had shit like this. Whereas, like, oh yeah, their close normals are supposed to anti-air or something because you're supposed to react to people being close to you, but you don't know the exact range because it's not very precise. But even if that was the intent behind the design, he punches down. He punches down. He punches him in the gut. What is the purpose of this move? In what situation would you want to use close 5A?
I don't know, dude.
Nothing. None. There is no situation. Now 2A, I mean, what can you say about 2A? It's low, it's 4 frames, it's plus like +1 I believe. Maybe one of his best normals. So that's fine. You're like, okay, hey, a low 2A, 4 frame. Not bad.
Yeah, that four frame is the fastest to the less initiated.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Four
the
frame
fastest way.
is the fastest 2A in the game. Couple characters have a 4 frame 2A, but that's pretty decent. You can challenge people with that. The thing is, the best part about having a 4 frame 2A is the mix up. Because if, you're doing a jump in, you're doing an empty jump, which is already, kind of iffy and okay in a lot of situations because of wake up grab, etc. But anyway, if you're doing that, you can whiff and do a low, and it's 4 frames, and it's like really fast. But it's even better if you have standing normal, like a standing overhead, which George does technically, but we'll get to that. So 2A, Not bad.
All right, not bad.
Not bad. Now we talked about Far 5B. You know, I think we've said pretty much all I would say about it. The hitbox is terrible. Um, in pretty much every respect that you would possibly want to use it in. It whiffs on crouchers a lot of the time. It also like whiffs during combos if you try and confirm into it. If you try and do like 2A, 2B into 5B, it might whiff on like a crouching opponent. I believe that has happened to me before. So there's that. That's always good. Can't anti-air. And even if you do anti-air with it, it's like really hard to follow up to it. It's like you gotta like know it's coming, and then you gotta like jump cancel, do jump B, C maybe, and do a pickup. I don't know.
Hmm.
That situation has like happened to me so few times in all my years of playing that I don't even really know. But whatever.
Hmm.
And then you have close 5B. Now, close 5B is one of those things that seems good, and in, I would say, comparison to the rest of the kit, is probably in the middling to good aspect of his kit. But the thing is, compared to other characters in the same game utilizing the same mechanics, is pretty garbage. Because what it is, it's like, man, I don't remember the frame date off the top of my head. Like 6 or 7 frame startup, uh, pretty fast recovery, like 7 or 8, and it's like 0 on block, and it's like pretty active. It has like a lot of active frames. I want to say like 6, 7, something in that range. And that's good in very certain situations, like resetting people, um, after an air combo, or putting a meaty out there. But here's the thing, it's
Hmm.
close 5B. So, to get it, you have to be close to them, you know? Which means if you wanted to meaty with it and like have like if you meaty with it, it can be pretty good. Like, it's got a lot of active frames. You meaty with it, you could get some frame advantage or whatever. To be close enough to meaty with close 5B, you are in throw range. If you meaty with close 5B, you will get thrown on wake up every time.
Yeah. To the less initiated, what they figured out. Is it 0 frames or 1 frame throws?
Well, you grab on the first frame after grabbing, so it might as well be 0 frames.
Hmm.
There's
Yeah,
like a
and
very minor technical
that's actually one
difference.
of the things. In like higher level play, you'll just see people getting thrown sometimes up close, and that's really. It doesn't happen as much when like two high level players will do it, but sometimes that's just like the result where you both just kind of land and grab each other and then tech because no other option will work. So I can definitely attest to that. Like that just really shuts out a lot of like close range moves that you might I don't know
Hmm.
otherwise have something. So
Yeah, and it's the same kind of situation in those reset situations that I was talking about. Like you do a combo into 6C, and then you hit them with like a meaty 5B into some sort of like reset situation. The thing is, you're close enough that you are in throw range for like pretty much everybody, I'd say. And so if you try and do something cheeky, like reset 5B into a meaty close 5C, which is an overhead, you'll get grabbed. So that's not real. That's one of those gimmicks that I was talking about earlier. And it's just so baffling because when you look at the entirety of George, there's so many instances of that happening. There's so many things that you look at it, you're like, hey, this could be pretty good. Or this situation seems favorable to me. And then when you get into the actual situation and you're playing against people, especially people who have experience, you realize it's a stunning realization, a crushing realization, you might say, that these situations are actually not in your advantage. And really, it puts you into, at best, like a guess against you. It's like you're putting yourself into a mix up, which, as I'm sure most people can assume, is not ideal. But anyway, I want to talk about one of my favorite normals, and by that I mean the worst one, 2B.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay.
This move is so garbage that it's depressing. It's like actually depressing to me. So you do it, and you know, I think there's something strange about George where his animations give this sense of speed to his normals, but then you look at the frame data and you realize that they're not as fast as they appear. And it's like I think it's most apparent with 2B because you do it and you're like, oh man, he throws out this quick kick, and it's like, oh okay, this is like some kind of quick, fast poke that I could like, try and catch people with in like a neutral situation or like pressure or something. Again, like a footsie kind of thing, right? Right. But then you realize, okay, so he does the kick, right? That comes out, and then what does he do? He does like this little like spin flurry, right? Like he's got a style on them or something. He has some like moral obligation to like be flashy. And what you don't realize is he's in recovery for that entire animation. So the move comes out. It's not very active, if I remember correctly, like 2 or 3 active frames. And then you are in recovery for like 17 frames or like more, even. I don't remember off the top of my head. It might be close to 20,
Hmm.
which in a game like OMK with meta and all that sort of shit and a bunch of sword normals, really safe pokes, means if you whiff this in the wrong time, you will get punished. Like a complete punish. And there's like nothing you can do about that if you whiff it. If you have a wrong read and they jump on you and you threw out a 2B, guess what? Their jump C is going to hit you in a counter hit, and there's nothing you can do about that. Unless it's like, I don't know, the slowest jumper in the game, like Virgilia or something. Even then, probably.
So one thing I'm really curious about, because I actually like to know all the details of like the normals for the sake of neutral game, like
Hmm.
how big they're, how fast they're, how active, because the characters I play are very neutral based, so understanding all of the big hitters is important. So tell me about the what if this move is blocked? What if it's hit? What kind of things happen from there?
Okay. Well, the thing is, because of that absurd recovery, you cannot like let this one rock, right? If you do not cancel to be into something, you are minus by a lot. Now, luckily, I mean it's a beat move, so you have options to cancel into. But the thing is, with the way that OMK works, if I remember correctly, hold on, I'm gonna test a couple things here. Okay, yeah, the window to cancel is a bit, yeah, okay, it's a bit weird. I I don't know exactly how it works. That'd be a good thing for somebody in the lab, the more technical minded people to test like what exactly is the cancel window. I'm not entirely sure. I know it has to be like during the active frames, and then like there's some like window in the recovery frames where you can still cancel. But they're also like does like I'm like testing it right now, and there's this window where like he's at the end of the flip, and you can't cancel it, which is something I have experienced before. Because you're playing online, and you got your delay, your rollback on, and sometimes it can be really hard to react to just a random hit, and it'll be like, oh shit, I hit him with my 2B, I'm gonna cancel, and it's like, oh wait, I can't, fuck. So I just like didn't get anything off of that hit. So like on hit, it's like max range, your best option, 2C. You'll be seeing that a lot. You'll be hearing that a lot in this rant, because 2C is like the only normal that George has that works on the ground, other than like 2A maybe. Because you said you have it on the screen.
I do.
Look at trying to confirm 2B at like anything other than like close range.
Yeah,
Even close range,
it
it's hard.
it doesn't reach. I'm noticing.
Yeah,
It's
5B won't reach, 6C won't, or 5C won't reach. You cannot confirm into anything other than 2C.
yeah, it's pretty sad. If you're really close to 2B into 5C can work.
Wow, I didn't even realize. If you hit max range 2B, 2C doesn't even combo. It will actually whiff sometimes. I did not even know that until just now.
Yeah, yeah. I
That's
see that.
incredible. How can a move be so incredibly shitty? So yeah, this move that on the surface seems like it would be a decent poke is actually incredibly terrible. Never use this move outside of a combo.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I immediately look at is like my lizard brain. I've just hit all the buttons on the character, right? And I'm like, okay, let me see how big are these boxes? Where can they go? And the first box was like, yeah, the 2B. But then I remember I tried playing George, and I think it was against you, and I did like a micro dash 2B, and I just was like 2B into 2B, and then I think you literally just like 2A'd me out of it because it's like -6 or something ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, oh, okay, this move is like, why is it -6 like on block or hit?
Mm-hmm. But you know what the worst thing is? Even though you should never use it, you're still tempted to use it, because what are your alternatives? 5B? 5C? 5C also has basically the same recovery as 2B. Uh, I don't remember the exact frame date, of course, but like it's a C move, so obviously it has more startup, more recovery than a B move, or you would think.
You would think.
Um, but yeah, and like 5C, while it has a better hitbox than 5B, is still not impressive in a lot of respects. And it's like, well, okay, yeah, like am I supposed to poke with 5B that will get low profiled by like a battler 3B every single time? No. I have to use put 2B, which means I have to put myself in danger. If I whiff this, or if I hit it at max range because I'm footseeing or something,
Hmm.
I get nothing. I get nothing. The thing is, at max 2B range, okay. At max 2B range, what you get is 214C, quarter circle back C, which is a techable knockdown for 234 damage, or 399 if you're in a slightly closer position. Oh, and if you're at max range, that doesn't combo either. Hold on, I'm gonna test this more. Okay, no, it combos at most ranges. Maybe super max range it won't combo. But yeah, that's literally all you get if you are footseeing at max range with the 2B. And so, okay. So again, to reiterate, we're at this position where we're like, okay, George, he's not super fast. His normals move him forward slightly, but are kind of terrible in terms of hitbox and even frame data, if we're being honest. Uh, he has this weird walk speed. So it's like you get this feeling of, oh, maybe I want to play a grounded footsie game. Oh, well, you can't do that. Yeah, your best quote unquote poke doesn't confirm into literally like practically anything at max range. So why are you even poking with it? You're better off poking with 2C despite it having like twice the startup.
Hmm.
You have to preemptively poke. You have to predict where they're going to be and poke where they're going to be. you know?
So
So, okay.
I
Mhm.
don't think you've mentioned, if you're finishing up on the normals, I don't think you've necessarily mentioned 2C.
Right. Uh, I briefly touched on 5C. Far 5C, like I said, slightly better version of 5B, which is like, why do I have two normals that are like basically the same thing? First of all,
Hmm.
second of all, if 5C is going to be a better 5B, can you just give me something better for 5B, please? But regardless, close 5C. Okay, can I talk about close 5C for a second?
Okay, no, no, yeah, this is actually pretty important. I forgot.
Okay, so close 5C. It is a two-hit move, right? It combos into itself. Thank God. Like I just imagine them designing it, and they were like, deep in the writers' room, brainstorming, and they're like, okay, here we go, George, close 5C. I don't know, guys. Like it's an overhead. It's pretty fast. Maybe it shouldn't combo. Like, cause I don't know. Like, do you guys think that's too good? And thank God somebody in the room had like a brain and was like a functioning brain, I should say, and was like, no, I think that's okay. I think it should combo. So at least it combos. Now the first hit, he does the first hit, he just does a kick, and it's like, well, we'll say it's pointless, which is putting it generously, because, it's a close normal, so the range on that literally doesn't matter. And then he does the second hit, which is an overhead. It is a grounded overhead. It will hit them if they are crouch blocking. And you're like, hey, that's pretty good, right? Like grounded overhead.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
everybody has that.
and it can combo
And
too, like into your partner.
yeah, it's a C move, so it combos off a touch. If you hit it meaty, you can actually link after it. Um, and just a combo by yourself. Hey, not bad. You can meta cancel it into a combo. That's all right. So here's the thing. Only the second hit is the overhead, right? Which means to hit somebody with this move, you need to spend, I don't know, however many frames of this startup of the first hit and then the long animation of him pulling the leg up and drop kicking it. So, the point of an overhead is to catch people by surprise. If your overhead is reactable, there is no point, right?
Yeah, because the first hit has to hit, right? So it's
The
like, what is
first hit,
this?
the first hit has to come out, you know? So as soon as somebody sees the first hit, they're like, "Oh, well, the second hit is gonna be an overhead, so I'm gonna block." And you're like, "Okay, okay. I can salvage this. I can make this work. I can change him." And you're like,
Okay.
okay, I'm gonna look at every option about this. I'm gonna look at every aspect of this. And you're like, okay, then you discover, hey, I can cancel the first hit. Okay. Hey. Okay. Okay. Maybe we got something here. Maybe this is salvageable. Then you realize, what am I canceling the first hit into? Only into C moves and specials. So
Oh,
your options are 2C, 3C, or a special.
and I want to emphasize to the viewers and or listeners, if they're viewers, they have the visual on screen right now. But the the close 5C, the two hits, you really can't cancel that second hit very quickly. Like, or you can cancel the first hit as you said, but it has to be like really fast.
You can only cancel it during the hit. You cannot cancel during the animation of him pulling his leg up. Like after the first hit, you cannot cancel until the second hit is connected, which is the worst part. Like in an alternate universe where OK was designed competently, or we'll even be generous and say George was designed competently, you would be able to cancel during that like with startup animation of him lifting his leg up, because then even then that's not great, but you could maybe confuse somebody with that and mix them up. You could
Hmm.
delay it, you could stagger it, you could do something.
Yeah, because there actually is a similar situation that happened to it. If anyone's aware of like a Melty Blood, Red Arc, she has like a standing overhead that has two hits to it, or at least they forced it to have two hits. It's very similar, but it was actually so good that they like kind of nerfed it a bit. And it's still okay to be honest, but like yeah, that kind of I even if it were really good and ambiguous, I think that that would be like the one good thing George could have. He would still probably be like bottom five characters, but
Well, okay, okay. No, no, no. We'll continue along that thread, all right? Of like, okay, in an alternate universe where that's possible, again, what are your options to cancel into? 2C, 3C, or a special? And we'll talk about this. 2C is 14 frame startup. I'm pretty confident on that one. So that's a long time. That's a long time. Pretty easy to react to. Alternatively, 3C, much quicker. Uh, I don't know the startup on that one, but I do know it is a pretty quick, more quicker than that. Um, so like that'll come out fairly quickly. But 3C is, I don't remember if it's a techable knockdown. I think it might be. Yeah, it is. So 3C techable knockdown, which means you hit somebody with that, they tech, you're still in recovery from doing 3C, they land on you with a jump C and punish you. Now, of course, you can cancel 3C into a special, so it's not as cut and dry as that, but still, like, imagine that situation. Imagine a situation where you successfully mix someone up, and instead of getting a reward like a combo or a knockdown or damage or anything, you put yourself in a tech trap. You were tech trapping yourself after winning a mix up.
you know, I didn't actually know that 3C was deckable. What?
Yeah.
Why? What? Like the 2C isn't deckable. Why is the 3C? Where they're like, man, some wizard's gonna figure out a George infinite loop in the corner. We better watch out for this one.
Mm-hmm. I believe you can actually. Um, Hold on. If you spend meter, Um, hold on. I think you can actually combo if you spend meter. Or wait, maybe I'm wrong. No, I think I'm wrong. I remember there's a weird situation where you can do 3B or 3C into uh level 2, but
Hmm.
I think that was in meta, now that I'm thinking about it. Because obviously you can't tech in meta. So I think you can confirm 3C into level 2 in meta. So hey, if you are already in meta when you are mixing someone up, hey, you could spend more meter off of that mix up and get a mediocre combo because your opener is literally 3C into level 2.
That's a lot. That's really bad and inefficient, shitty combo. Don't actually do that. But it's we're in the realm of theory, like theoretically, what's the most you could get?
Yeah, so okay, but you know, I think that's also all beside the point because hey, we were discussing the alternate timeline where George was competently designed. What we live in is the trash bag timeline where George is, as I said earlier, a flaming garbage can in a red suit. So you cannot cancel the animation of close 5C. So what that means is in order to get the mix up, you have to cancel the 5C into the 5C immediately into 3C, which, as I said, puts yourself in a tech trap, or into 2C, which is a 14 frame startup and is admittedly a pretty good move, but very slow, which means not very good as a mix up. And so what happens is if you if you make somebody block this move, all they have to do is hold down back until they see the animation of him lifting up the leg. At that point, you are locked in. Your fate is inevitable. You have no agency. And at that point, they can just hold back and block the overhead. There's literally nothing you, as the George player, can do to stop that. All, like, pretense of a mix up has vanished. Now, you can cancel that hit into a variety of things, like specials. Funnily enough, you can't cancel it into 2C. So you can't combo off of that without meter. Also, by the way, or touch, or unless it's meaty, like I said earlier. But if you just hit this raw, somehow, as we've established, a very unlikely situation. But even if you hit this raw, you can't combo off of it without meter or touch.
It's so unusual that you can cancel the first hit into 2C, and you can cancel raw far 5C into 2C. But that overhead, they're like, no way, pal. You're not getting this one, George. That overhead into 2C, no way, buddy boy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I never knew that. Not that I think you would ever really want to in too many circumstances, but sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
good to be flexible with options if you want to do like burst safe combos or knockdown early or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right.
Wait. I'm not done.
Oh my God, what more could you say about 5C?
Well, no. I'm done with 5C, I think. Uh, I could talk about, like, how the frame advantage is garbage and it's slow. And, you know, like I said, like, I think I've said a lot about it. That's fine. We want to talk about 2C, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
Hey,
talk about
2C,
2C.
pretty good, right? Like, honestly, I'd probably say best normal he's got.
Well, the
And
two,
then
you know,
oh, 2A is a 2A. Like,
yeah,
it's good,
it's
but
low. It's a little stubby though.
yeah, like, I mean, 2A, it's okay. It's not great, though. Like, it's a 4 frame 2A that's low. Those are good things on paper. But the hitbox, and then it's like the application. People are gonna look at that, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, okay, whatever." You know, like Anji's 2A, which is a four frame low, is good because it has a decent hitbox. George's is like okay. You can use it to challenge certain things that other characters who don't have a four frame 2A can't. Wow, that's great. He'll take what he can get.
Hmm.
But Juicy, I would say, is good. I would say legitimately good for George. That's the caveat I'll put for George. You want to look at 2C, and it's like, hey, it's a decent hitbox. Um, it moves forward like a shit ton. It low profiles a lot of things. It's plus on block. And basically, like I said earlier, this is like your footsie tool.
And it's pretty slow to start for a footsie tool.
Yeah,
That's its
like
one.
14 frames. Like I said, I'm pretty confident on that one. I'd have to check, but I'm pretty sure it's 14 frames. Um, yeah. So uh, when the thing is, it's like all that's great, you know, legitimately pretty good. Uh, but when that's your only good option, then that automatically takes away from like the value of all of those good things, because all of a sudden, hey, like if you're battler, you could do a 5B, you could do a 3B, you could jump up and do a big old tie or whatever. You got options.
Hmm.
You can vary your approach. With George, it's like I know that 2C is coming. Cause what else is he gonna do? Is he gonna 5B me? Is he gonna 2B me? Is he? Maybe he gets, uh, maybe he gets dangerous and throws out a rogue 5C and tries to catch me off guard. But that's about it. And then even then, know another funny thing? Hey, you hit a max range 5C. Guess what? Can't combo into 2C. Hilarious. What a funny character. Am I right, fellas? Folks, guys and dolls. What a card. What a character we got here, huh? Hey, here I am doing my cool ground-based footsies. Oh, I whiff punished you? I hit you at max range? I successfully shuffled you? Oh, hey, I get nothing off of it, by
And
the way.
it's so bizarre because of how far forward like the 2C goes. You'd think, right, that that's enough, but it's not.
Nah, because of the way how OMK works and the fucking knockback that they put on C moves, it whiffs. 5C moves specifically. But yeah, it whiffs at max range. Hilarious. So, even if you get that rogue 5C hit, which is like his only okay poke, what are you supposed to do? I hope you like confirm that into meta or like attack touch or God forbid level 2. Let me just randomly buffer level 2 off this 5C poke I threw out.
Yeah, and one of the things too that I think a lot of people don't realize is that modern fighting games actually give moves hit stun, whereas like this game doesn't.
Yeah.
There's so little hit stun and confirming is hard, and we have rollback, which makes some things better, but it can make things difficult too. Like the netcode isn't as good as a lot of modern games, so
Yeah, yeah. Definitely.
because you say that advice of like, oh yeah, well you can buffer it. Theoretically, yes, but like,
Theoretically.
what if you like go rogue 2B into super rogue 5C and it miraculously connects, even though you've established that max range 2B into 5C doesn't connect, and max range 5C into 2C doesn't connect. But let's say there's some miracle you manage to you know, just work around these moves and get something to happen. Okay, is that
Mm-hmm.
you'd have to what if, and this happens in rollback? What if you hit with 2B and then 5B, and it says a two-hit combo, and you buffered your level 2, but then the second hit actually rolls back into a block? That's happened. That happened with this netcode.
No.
So I think that, I don't want to just be like, fucking netcode, but I do think that while, yes, in the realm of theory, it really needs to be established that, because you have that theoretical one solution, a lot of the practical application is not quite there for George, which is my big problem with him.
Mm-hmm. So, 2C, like I said, good, but the fact that it's good and the fact that it's the only good thing about George automatically lowers the usefulness of it because it's so obvious that you're going to go for it, right? Like, because
Mm.
what else are you going to do? So there's that. And then we have 3C, everybody's favorite normal. So what is 3C? It's the break dance, the fancy feet, the
If you actually aren't aware, I actually did break dancing. That's called a windmill.
oh, yeah. So the windmill, the whirly bird, whatever you want to call it. What is the point of this move? John, give me your opinion on what you think the point of this move is, because
Well,
I clearly don't know.
it's a techable knockdown, so nothing. Um,
Okay, well, wait. Before you continue, not entirely true, because guess what? The second hit is untechable.
oh,
Yeah, the second hit is an untechable knockdown.
but
Isn't that funny?
what?
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that just the most hilarious thing you've ever heard?
What the fuck? I was unaware of this.
I
You know,
told
this
you.
this isn't one
Years
of
of
those.
playing George.
Yeah, I'm really learning some nuance here. I feel like I'm the audience surrogate, so to speak. I've really played this game a lot, which is something. Hmm.
So, continue. What do you think the use of this? What is the purpose of this move?
The only thing I can really think of is if they don't have their touch meter, because any C move on block is punishable in this game, because it's a dumb game. But let's say they don't have their gauge or whatever. If you run up and just whiff the first hit of the 3C kind of in their face, but the second hit kind of tags them. Maybe you could counter hit them theoretically with something on the first hit if they stick
You
a move
think?
out. And then the second move tags them. Though I'm realizing that this range isn't really that good, even if you try to dash into it, because there's inherited momentum in this game, like DI, I guess, like how you can run forward and then tap up with super jump, and even
Hmm.
if you just normally super jump up, it just goes up, but because you're running, you can actually clear over people and do cross ups and stuff. So I'm thinking, okay, so you micro dash into 3C, but I'm actually realizing how shitty the range is on this move. And if you want to try and tag them with the second hit of 3C, the windmill or whatever, it's
Hmm.
it's so slow for that move to come out that why wouldn't you just even run up in 2B 2C?
Yeah. Or just
So
2C.
it's not a good poke move.
Yeah.
Maybe if you knock down, it does more OTG hits. Yeah, it gets maybe you could knock down and then 2A 2A 2B and then 3C a couple times. Does it do more damage than
Them 2C? I don't think so. No, no way. Just if you get the knockdown hit, because if you get the first hit, they tech. So you can only get the knockdown hit, and it definitely does less damage than 2C.
I guess that's what I'm wondering is if you get a knockdown with 2C, then like 2B into 3. Yeah. Let's see, it's 385. I guess technically, if you like knock down windmill, windmill and its two hits on knockdown or on OTG, I'm sorry, does more damage.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, basically, literally, it only exists to OTG with, which is bizarre. Like, just in
yeah.
general,
Mm.
why? I mean, why does it have the other properties that it does? Then, why is it techable on the first hit? Why
Why
is it untechable on the second
why
hit?
can you hold it and do three of them?
Why can you do that in a game where any C move on block can be punished with a full combo?
I really got to give credit to the animators though. Like George is so ridiculous. All of his moves, all of his little twirly twirls, all of his fucking windmills, his jump kick. Oh man, he's amazing. But yeah, I don't know. I guess that's it. Only to OTG. I mean, you're the scientist here, right? So
Mm-hmm. Because I mean, to go even further, assuming you do get the bizarre second hit knockdown, what do you get off of that? Nothing. Again. Nothing. Again. Unless you spend a meter. What's worse is you can't even. Okay, actually, never mind. You can get a hard knockdown with 236C. So, yeah. If you land the hard knockdown of 3C, you can get a hard knockdown with a whole whopping 500 damage. After landing this incredibly spacing specific, timing specific, uh, counter poke, low, whatever, however you landed this fucking hit. I mean,
okay,
of course, you can spend meter and you can level two, again, terrible level two. What kind of like that opener second hit of of 3C into level 2 terrible. And because it's a knockdown, uh if you attack touch, well you only get an air combo with your partner. So I mean depending on your character that can be okay or it can be terrible. So again, literally get nothing off that. So that's great. Uh I love having a normal that is useless in 95% of situations that happen during a match. That's always great, you know? And as a segue, speaking of said normals, can we talk about the six series of normals that George has?
so so okay, yeah. Let's do that real quick.
Yeah.
Also, I want to point out, guy, it has in fact been an hour and 3 minutes. So
Yeah?
I mean, I know we filled in a lot of the dead air with just other conversation points, but
Hmm.
yeah, I get you still have more to say. Let's go with
I
it,
have
right?
a lot more to say.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay, so let's talk about the six normals. If you didn't know, George has a series of command normals, uh, one for each button. He has a 6A, a 6B, and a 6C. Now, the 6C, of course, is the main attraction that everybody knows and loves. It's a combo move. It's just a big old Chad move in general, right? He does a big old split and that's great. That's great. That's it's just great. Everybody loves that move. I mean, it's literally almost useless outside of a combo. So again, another normal that George has that is only useful in one specific situation. But that's beside the point. Let's talk about 6A and 6B. What is the point of these moves? In what situation would you ever want to purposefully do these moves?
I I
What?
I I can only say they're just for sometimes sneaking cheeky little pressure in, but
Yeah,
sometimes you might be able to get a grab off of one, but
like okay, actually, it's a funny thing about that. I'm gonna get to that in a second. Um, yeah, you can sneak them in, maybe. um, First of all, they're slow. They're slow as hell. So they're easy to see. Second of all, they don't have better frame data than the normals, like the normals that their parent normals, I suppose we should say, 5A and 5B. They don't have better frame data. They don't have better hitbox data. For all intents and purposes, I'm sure they're probably almost exactly the same in terms of hitboxes. So, you know, maybe there are situations where you can be sneaky with the 6A. Sure. You know, you're like doing some 2As in a pressure string. Maybe you do like 2A, 5A, 2A, and you get the kick, and then you can do like a 6A, and they weren't expecting it. Sure. 6B, literally useless. I can say with utmost certainty that there is no situation, no conceivable situation where you would purposefully do 6B and be like, "Yep, that was the correct choice. I really wanted to do that there and I'm glad I did it."
explain why.
Well, it doesn't combo off of anything. First of all, um it's incredibly slow. It's not an overhead. It's just 5B, which, as we've already established, is an awful move. Except, imagine 5B, but instead of having decent frame data in terms of like startup and okay-ish recovery, you just increased both of those by like a factor of 1.5. In fact, it might even be like double the startup. I don't remember the frame data, but you know, it's a long ass time. And what do you get out of that? Oh, hey, it's 5B. Great.
Yeah, not a good reward. Did you wouldn't want this 5B most of the time anyway.
Uh huh.
So
And
what
then,
about?
okay.
So I'm just dabbling here. Okay. What about
Yeah.
2B into 6B? Is this?
Um, well, it doesn't combo, that's for sure.
Well, let's just talk pressure. Like
Guess what? Uh, max range 2B into 6B doesn't hit.
really?
Yeah, max range doesn't hit.
Oh,
It'll probably hit on blocking because
oh wow.
blocking does increase your um hitbox or your hurtbox for some reason. So yeah, on block they will block it, but then it's like, okay, what, they blocked the 5B. Great. Now what are you gonna do? Cancel into 2C like you should have done it the first time?
Yeah, it's a lot of risk to be like, oh, I'm gonna get an extra little 5B in here to kind of I don't know.
Well, the thing is, it doesn't even give you positioning because if they block the 5B, block anything, you get pushed back. So all of the range that you made up for doing the little hop on a 6B gets negated by the pushback from blocking it.
Hmm.
So you're literally back in the same spot that you started in. If you look,
Yeah, there's really not a lot to be gained here, except for like an extra hit that you sneak in. Okay, I'm convinced. Doesn't seem that great except for being sneaky. Anything else to say about it?
yes. Um, so they also have this peculiar aspect property of if you hold the button, then you do a fake out, right? You don't do the move, and he does a little prissy hop, and he just fakes out, and you're like, hey, maybe there's something there, right? Like I could, I don't know, do something. Uh, you'd be wrong again. Guess what? Um, You
Okay.
just spent like fucking, I don't know, what is it, like 25 frames, 20 frames doing nothing. At at which point the opponent player is, not in block stun. Even if you do like 2B into like hold 6B, they're not in block stun, so they can literally press any button and beat you. Um, they can throw you. Now, okay, I experimented with this a lot. Okay, I tried to make this work because there there is a certain period of time during the six normals where you do count as airborne during the hop. And so I thought, hey, maybe there's something here where I can like bait a throw and get something off of that, make them think that I'm close enough to get a throw because throw is a very viable reversal option. It's a very safe option in a lot of respects. When you're close by someone, I could bait a throw and do something with that, punish, get a whiff punish or something. Turns out the window on the hop where you are airborne is so minuscule that this is like it's practically meaningless. Like I don't know the frame data. Now that we have frame display, maybe we could go and check. I'm not exactly sure.
Mm.
I've only looked at it very briefly. But if you set up the dummy and get him to do some six normals and look at it, um, there's this period of time, like it's right in the middle where he is airborne and you will whiff the throw, but before that and after that, he's actually grounded. Even though he doesn't look like it, you will throw him.
Mm.
So, to reiterate, you have spent 20 to 25 frames, I don't remember how long, to do nothing, be at negative frames, and be in range of throw, and be vulnerable to throws. All for the sake of, oh, maybe he wasn't expecting that, and I can do something with that knowledge? Like throw him? Wow, I get a throw, which is like 300 or 400 damage. Amazing. After putting myself in this prime situation to be completely punished.
Okay. So not very good.
Oh. So, uh, basically completely fucking useless, actually.
Okay.
All of them. Um, I mean, maybe you can make an argument for doing like 2C into the fake 6C because at least I think that might be neutral-ish. You might be like -1 or 2. But then like what are you going to do with that? Like I don't know, bait a meta reversal because they try and counter poke you or something. I don't know. It, it's extremely situational, niche, and it's also again a gimmick, like pretty much everything that George has. So, all right, we've gone through all the ground normals, air normals, jump C. I'm gonna go through this really quick because there's really not a lot to say about them. Jump
Because
C,
these are actually the few good things about George.
yeah, good for George.
Okay.
Yeah. Jump C, pretty good. Decent hitbox, decent active frames. Pretty quick startup. Just good all around. Jump B, pretty decent air to air. Uh, Respectable hitbox for what it is. Still not a sword normal. Jump A, it's a jump A. I don't know what else to say about it.
It is active, which is always nice.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty active.
'Cause some people don't have the most active ones.
Yeah.
Quick caveat: you mentioned this in the past previously about just how far the horizontal range on jump B is, and I can
Hmm.
attest to this. It actually goes pretty far.
Yeah.
It's a little almost misleading. But yeah, so that's all I want to say.
It is pretty funny because you look at his jump normals and you're like, hey man, like why can't I have some of this on the ground? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's with these hitboxes? Like, how come this jump B kick, which is basically, I mean, for all intents and purposes, 5B, why can't I have that kind of hitbox on the ground, my dude? You know? But anyway, yeah, not a whole lot to say about the jump normals.
What about jump 2C?
Oh, right. Um, it's bizarre.
This strikes me as like the windmill on the ground. Like, why would I do this?
Yeah, it's like there are very certain situations where you can get both the hits of jump 2C in the like in an air combo and it does slightly more damage than like just jump C. And I know Zaria and maybe somebody else that I don't remember the name of were talking about like really bizarre like reset situations where you like hit with jump 2C in the air and it puts you in a weird spot where you like land next to them and it's kind of like a, you know, an ambiguous kind of where they land. You could be left or right. I never got any of that to work. And frankly, I think it's probably a gimmick, even if you do get it to work. Because at the end of the day, they'll be landing right next to you, which is always like a
Bro,
really rough situation in OMK. So yeah, another
hmm,
bizarre move that is like, why does this exist? Where am I supposed to use this? You know? Yeah, basically. Even in the air, George cannot escape this curse. I will say the hitbox is alright. It's active because there's two hits,
hmm.
but you know, like uh it's got a weird like horizontal hitbox, which is like I don't, you know, if I was going to air to air people, I'd probably do jump B. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. Everything George has is just weird. Like, what kind of fucking drugs were they huffing when they designed this character? I want to know. Because that sounds like some good shit.
Yeah, there's just things that don't make sense. But okay, air normal's pretty basic, pretty
Yeah.
good. Jump C,
Good.
jump B in
Yeah.
some situations.
Yeah.
It's
I
funny
mean, like,
because even though this is like, oh hey, this is the redeeming George feature. George does not compare to like the best air people in the game. Let's just say.
mhm. Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. So you want to talk about specials, right? Because that's next, right?
Okay, okay, let's go.
Um, yeah, okay. 236. Good start. He does a two-hit thing. He goes up and he goes down. Hey, it's an overhead. Wow, that's cool. I love having moves that are overheads. I am a mix-up character. The purpose of me is to mix up people and put them into a vortex where they don't know how to block. Hey, guess what? It's a fucking hard knockdown that I get nothing off of. Wow! Amazing! I have successfully guessed that you were blocking low and confused you enough to hit you with an overhead. Oh, wow. Good thing you get knocked down so I can do another one after getting no damage?
Because this seems like if we were playing Street Fighter, where every hit kind of can do some damage or something. Sure,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
you know, hitting someone once, yeah, not good.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, in a lot of ways, George does feel like he's from a different game. Like he's supposed to be in a fucking Street Fighter game or something. You know, they would make a lot more sense where it's like, oh yeah, I just get like a random hit off of these fucking wacky ass normals, and that's okay because it does enough damage to matter. But OMK is not that game. So yeah. And it's pretty slow. Again, the hitbox is like whack. The first hit whiffs crouchers. I didn't even realize. I don't use it very much. Um,
It's pretty bad. So
that's bizarre. Why does it do that?
I mean, you can just jump over people with the bigger ones.
Yeah. But even like the short one, if you're right next to them and they're crouch blocking, it doesn't hit them.
That's
I mean, it is a hit. I know that there's a hit there because if you combo somebody in the air, it does 2 hits. Like,
yeah.
why does it? Why does it not hit crouchers? Like, what? Why would you want that to happen? In what world would 236 hitting crouchers on the first hit be too good?
Maybe if the first hit's an overhead.
Yeah, well, we'll never know because it doesn't hit crouchers. I don't think. I mean, maybe you should see if it hits Virgilia. I don't think it does. She's like the biggest crouching hitbox, I think.
Uh,
Um, yeah. There's not a whole lot to say about it. It is a hard knockdown, and it's sort of like implied if you go back and watch like old videos, like old official videos, that he's supposed to like end his combo with this to get a hard knockdown. You know, you do like a combo into like a fucking 2C, 6C.
hmm
You can get a hard knockdown with that, and that's supposed to be like ideal. Even though that's like a lot less damage than doing um like the pickup into the air combo and doing a reset. And even if you get the hard knockdown, as we've already established, George's mix-up is not very threatening and doesn't even lead to a high reward. So why would you ever do that?
Yeah, in practice too, because that this is kind of where I'm very curious, is that this move of George's, a lot of them, the hard knockdown in particular, is that George kind of boils down to like, can you pretty safely do your 2C? If yes, okay, and then what happens after the 2C? Because the 2C is like plus 2 or 3 or 4, I want to say.
Yeah, it's like +3, maybe. It might even be +4. Yeah,
Because
it's pretty plus.
because that'll be like what happens is that you'll start blocking this, and then the guess turns into, okay, I've hit you with my 2C, now what happens? And it's either like you jump out, or sometimes George will do that axe kick to catch you jump, but it completely ends
Yeah.
his turn.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very minus. It's important to remember. But yeah,
Yep.
so
Very minus on block. Completely ends your turn. Even if you hit, all you do is reset the situation into a knockdown. And you don't even have like a lot of frame advantage. I mean, it's a decent amount, I guess. You do get to jump. So I guess you can do like an empty jump or whatever. But yeah, it's not great. Not great at all.
but okay.
The
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have more to say about it?
um it's just the EX version. The EX version does have juggle anywhere. I think. Oh, let me check. Damn it. Pretty sure it does have juggle anywhere. So you can, yeah, it's like I realized that it was actually optimal technically when you're doing the air combo after 6C to end with 236 EX instead of the roll. It does slightly more damage if you can get all 3 hits.
Mm.
Um, yeah, that's basically it because that move is useless. I don't think it has invincibility. Uh, it's very slow. The hitbox is again unimpressive, which you may have noticed is a theme among George. It's an overhead, you know. So in case they don't see the giant red dragon and they block low, hey, you get a knockdown. Still plus or still minus. I'm pretty sure.
Really? The EX is minus?
I'm pretty sure.
How the fuck do you time this move to like actually get all the hits? Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah, it's finicky. Yeah.
it,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This is minus as hell. Oh yeah. If you get all three, yeah, way minus. I'm thinking like minus 5, 6 at least. Yeah. Um. Yeah. So there's that move. Okay. 214. It's the Tatsumaki Senpu Kaku. Except terrible. This move is bizarre. Um. So the A version almost seems like decent. Um.
yeah.
Cause like, you know, it moves forward. It has a pretty decent hitbox, especially against people who are guarding. Um, you know, you can do it to check people. Um, it's a special move. It has a decent chunk of damage. Hey, guess what? It's a techable knockdown. So even if you hit somebody with this, not an overhead, by the way, in case anybody was wondering. Even if you hit somebody with this, they get blown up into the air, and they tech. And then you're like, okay, now again, I've sort of put myself in a very bizarre tech trap situation against myself because, I mean, you recover fast enough to like be able to react, but it's like rock paper scissors again, right? Like, what am I gonna do? Like, their jump C is likely going to beat like any option I do. Other than maybe like jump up and try and air to air them. Excuse me.
Mm.
Also, on a lot of characters, it will whiff on crouchers. Um, excuse me. I think I think if they block, you can manage to hit them on block, but there's a really funny thing where if you just like stop blocking against the 214A, it just whiffs them. So
Yeah.
obviously, uh, you can do that, and then you like press a normal and low profile it, and just get a punish. Or even like because it's not like a true block string. I'm pretty sure if you do it like a 2B into to it, which is like the only real situation you'd want to do that because like if you land a 2C, you don't want to do like 2C 214A because like that's just wasting your frames. It's not plus. It's like neutral at best, I think.
Mm.
So if you like do a 2B into 214 to like maybe catch them trying to challenge you or jump out or something crazy, like these weird characters can just low profile it, like a small character can just low profile it. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I just don't get to do that. Um,
Okay. Anything else to know about it?
well, to the B and the C versions, basically useless except for really wacky Hail Marys um, in a neutral. Because, you know, it moves you forward, and it's not the fastest thing in the world, but it's the fastest thing George has, probably. So, you know, maybe you could catch somebody doing whiffing something or doing something, you know. But again, um, bad hitboxes, techable knockdown. What happens a lot is they're throwing something out, and then you trade with it on like the second hit, which doesn't knock down. So you'll get knocked. You count as airborne, so you'll get knocked back, you know, and they'll get hit with it, and they recover, and then you're back in like a weird neutral position. You may even be at disadvantage depending on like your positioning. So that's great. EX version. What is this move used for? It hits combo or it hits crouchers. Combos on crouchers, I guess. It's not a techable knockdown for some reason. Maybe you could, yeah, you could use it to confirm off of that raw 5C poke you were doing.
All right, not very good.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, now we have roll. Now this is iconic, right? George Roll. That's like the reason that people play this character, right? Hey, guess what? This move actually fucking sucks. Spoiler alert. So they all do. But yeah. Um, yeah, this move, roll. Not invincible, despite what people think, or what you may think if you're starting to use the character. All it does is make his hitbox very small, low profile. Uh, does not have instant startup, so, you know, cannot be used as a reversal. Um, meaties will beat it. Even mistimed meaties will beat it. Um, despite its appearance of speed, as I said, it does literally nothing. So, you know, that's still like 20 to 30 frames, however long it is, I don't know, of you doing nothing while being completely vulnerable to any like lowish poke or even like a jump in that hits low to the ground, right? Like a jump C. Well, you're like, okay, well, whatever. Okay, it's another move that is only useful in one specific situation. I'm used to that. I'm a George player now. Guess what? Uh, wow, you know, hey, I'm gonna use this on a knockdown to get like a mix-up. Okay, this is what you call ambiguous? Like, you see where he's going, you know? Like, the first time that people fight against George, he does a roll on them, and they're like, ah, shit, like, what side is he gonna be on? The third time you fight against George, you're like, okay, I get it. You know? Because not only does he say a different line depending on what, you know, role he uses, like, they have different startups, I'm pretty sure. So, you can react to, like, where he's going pretty easily. You know, the common situation is like throw and then you do like 3C OTG into a roll. And it's like the thing is if you hit both 3Cs, even the C roll is not going to cross up. So if you see him do like one hit 3C into C roll, he crosses up. Into one hit 3C into B, he doesn't cross up. And that's it. Wow. You know? It's just really I don't know how else to say it.
So it's just not very good at like mixing people up because you could just see it.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't, it doesn't put you in like a frame advantage situation, really. You're still right next to them in OMK, which is not great. Um, and you're still, in 2A range, in throw range, and it's like all for what? A left-right mix-up that again leads to George's mediocre damage and set up into a situation that's exactly the same. What's the point? What's the point? Like why? What's even the point? And the EX move is like it tricks you because you use it and it's got this funny like wacky clash frame right at the start that can get you out of like an improperly timed meaty or like a weird situation, and that just leads to a scramble, you know but like the thing is, your options out of a scramble are George options, which are automatically worse than pretty much every character. The best option is usually just a backdash because his backdash is so fucking freakishly large. But if they see that coming and they like forward dash, guess what? You get punished.
Okay, so anything to say about EX roll? Yeah, hard knockdowns, people.
Yeah, it hard knockdowns. It has juggle anywhere. Like I said, it's a weird pseudo reversal that doesn't actually work once people know about it, and that's about it. It's not plus on block. In fact, it doesn't even hit crouchers. Again, I don't know why the developers, had some sort of like weird fetish about George not being able to hit crouchers. like he just like has some. Is that like part of the lore? Is that part of the Umaneko deep lore that I missed when I read the book? It's like, it would be dishonorable for me, George, a man, to hit a crouching opponent. I can't hit people who are kneeling before me because that would be unkingly.
Yeah, maybe Cam might have something to say about that. He like
Maybe,
unironically would be like, yes, it is true to the narrative. So I don't know.
maybe I don't know, but it's a fact of his design. He hates hitting crouchers.
Yeah, force is meant to be shown, okay? And when you fly over someone's head, you're like, that could have hit you.
Oh yeah, you know what? That might be it. They designed him around the lore of almost hitting people, but not quite to show how good he is. But guess what? In a fighting game, you need to hit people to win.
Hmm. Okay.
So yeah.
So the next move I think you're going to get to is one of George's, you could almost say, good redeeming features, actually. I think one of his key components
Hmm.
that makes him viable with at least one character, sort of,
What's that?
his level 2, that is.
Oh man. I do want to talk about the level 2 a little bit. But can we take a quick segue to an often overlooked special?
Okay.
And that would be the dive kick.
Ooh. Ooh, yeah. That one's pretty good. Okay.
Yeah, so hey, why does this move exist? John, can you tell me?
Okay, so we're asking, the layman's,
Yeah, the
the
audience here.
the audience surrogate that I am. Yeah, okay. My the one of the things I know about George is that a lot of times you would think, okay, the wall kick is only for when you have your back to the wall.
Right.
But if if you jump into a wall, you can still do it.
True.
So I think that that's actually not bad. It's just a little bit of a shame that like you can't like tag him with like jump C and then go into it kind of thing, like in the corner.
Yeah.
Because yeah, in like a lot of situations, it's like if you do the wall kick too low, it actually like whiffs on them. And like funnily
Oh
enough,
yeah.
if they're crouching, it can also whiff sometimes if I remember. If you do it
So
like
we
too
have
high up.
okay. I'm going to break down this move conceptually because it's probably one of the worst offenders in the entire kit, in my opinion.
Okay.
Um, like if George had this move, like a dive kick, even if you didn't change anything about it, if he could just do this move anywhere, he'd probably be a much better character.
Hmm.
Like, because, I mean, first of all, let's get this out of the way. Guess what? You land a dive kick, you don't get anything off of it again.
Get a hard knockdown. Okay.
You get a hard knockdown, and with the way it works, that's in the corner, so you don't get any kind of like mix up. You know, you don't get any roll mix up. His iconic roll mix up. You don't get anything like that. You get a hard knockdown. And hey,
Can I mention just one little detail about roll? How come it
mm,
doesn't like cross up into the corner against people?
yeah, that's a good
That's
question. That's an excellent question, John. We should probably ask the developers that.
like that. That seems like that should because he needs it. he, he needs something. Anyway, I'm sorry. Please go on about the dive kick.
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, even if they didn't change that, all you got off of it was a hard knockdown. If you could do it anywhere, that would be fucking swell. That would be so much better. Like almost to the point of making him playable. Just that one thing alone. But you can only use it in the corner.
Hmm.
You can only use it if you jump off a wall. Why? Why? Why would you make that a thing in a game where the fucking map is as big as it is in OMK? Like, the map is huge. The screen, like you can pull it back fucking a goddamn mile.
It is really big. I actually like that about the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine, as an aspect of the game. But in terms of this, that makes the dive kick so bad.
Hmm.
Because you look at a situation and you're like, okay, I can only use this off the wall. So I have to be, in the corner. I have to be on the other side of the fucking screen. So how do I use this? Okay, like, first of all, hey, A goes straight down. That's useless outside of, in any kind of defensive way, in my opinion. I don't know why defensively I'd want to go straight down in the corner or on the edge of a screen. The B version goes at like, a 45-degree angle, whatever. I could maybe see hitting someone with that. And the C version goes even further into a decent distance, like a third of the screen, basically. So whatever. Hey, okay. But like, why? Why would I do this? Because the hitbox on it is not amazing.
Hmm.
It's slow.
Hmm.
It gives you a hard knockdown if you hit with it. Wow. What an amazing reward. I use this defensively.
Can you tech out of it?
You cannot tech out of it. That is true. Unless you get hit in the air. I'm not sure about that one.
Hmm.
That one's hard to test. Um,
I was just curious. But yeah,
um,
as like I think as like a neutral tool, yeah, it would be something if George could just do it. I mean, maybe they take out the overhead property of it and just make it like, a dive kick. I
mhm.
don't know. Could work.
Yeah, like, oh, hey, hit them in the air. They can tech. Great. That's great.
Well, there you go, everyone. Hold jump when George is doing this and then smash the tech to get out.
Yeah, great. That's, I mean, a lot of characters jump a lot in anyway. So even if you do use this defensively and hit somebody out of the air, they tech, it has pretty big recovery, you know. I mean, not like super long recovery. Let's not oversell it, but it's not like the most quick, the most fastest thing in the world. It's not like zero recovery or whatever. So you're not gonna get like a good situation if you hit them out of the air with it. Um, so yeah, then you're like, okay, hey, um, there's one, there's literally one interesting thing that you can do with this move, and that is in the corner. Um, they're crouching, right? If you just jump into, if you jump and do the dive kick, the A dive kick, at the apex of your jump, it will whiff. If you do it a little bit lower than that, um, or no, a little bit higher than that, sorry, um, it will hit crouchers, and it is
Mm.
an overhead. Again, all you get is a hard knockdown. Uh, I think there is like a theoretical. Yeah, yeah. You can do a roll, EX roll, and get an extra damage off of that. An extra 300 damage.
Yeah, it is interesting that super jump hits, but normal jump doesn't.
Yep. Now that is interesting, but guess what? You do the whiff version. Uh, there's so much recovery, like going for the low, because like your thing is like, oh yeah, you super jump at them, and they're like, oh hey, is he gonna do a jump C? Is he gonna do the dive kick? What's he gonna do? You whiff, and then you go for the low. It's still pretty fucking slow, you
Mm.
know. It's got recovery on that, so it's not amazing. Is basically what I'm saying. Now, defensively, I will say EX dive kick is pretty good in certain matchups because it goes full screen. It does knockdown, hard
And it's
knockdown.
like invincible, right?
Uh, it's invincible for a good portion of it, yeah. It might be one of his best EX moves. Again, ironic. You can only use it in the corner.
Well, this is getting pretty high level, but at least against like a can bat strategy or cannon Beatrice, you'd think, oh, hey, I can just clobber them, right? If they just try to zone you and get meter. But it's like you
Hmm.
could just neutral tag and get George's ability, which is probably a better solution.
Yeah, it's kind of a last ditch thing. If it hits meaty, it is slightly plus. Um, and he's got the 4 frame 2 way, so he can maybe abuse that against people who aren't expecting it. Um, but yeah, dive kick, man. Like, why is it only in the corner? Why? Like, what? Moves that only use the corner, like jump off the walls and stuff, they only work if you have like a move that moves you to the wall. Like fucking El Forte or whatever. You know, characters like that, you need a move that like jumps you to the wall, and especially in a game where the screen is as big as OMK, having a move that you can only use in like such a small area of the screen is so bad.
Hmm.
It's incredible. So
Well,
yeah.
pretty bad. So
Hmm.
what's next on the list? All right, 'cause unless you have more to say about dive kick.
No, I think that's about it. It's terrible. Um, the reward is minimal. Hitting people out of the air is attackable, which puts you either in a neutral position, even if you hit them, or in a disadvantaged position, depending on where you hit them. And yeah, EX is the only good thing about it. Yeah, level 2. Everybody always loves to talk about this. It's another iconic George feature. Um, among the best SPs, SP2s in the game, maybe. Just for the fact that you do get to confirm a full combo off of it. Not only that, but it puts your opponent's partner into a waiting state, so they can't burst, they can't touch, etc. Here's the thing, though. Uh, you get a full George combo after it, so that doesn't really amount to much. And basically, all it is a way to add, 1,000 damage to your partner's combo is a better way to think about it. You know, and I mean that can be okay, depending on your partner. But that's not really a good thing about George. For George, it doesn't really matter much.
Hmm. The opportunity, well, especially for the meter cost, because it's 2 meter for this, so
Uh huh.
it's
True
like
meter.
if you could just like do a normal combo on your other character, you know, that would be good.
The only the the only thing that's really unique about it is the fact that you can stun someone and reset them into a standing state while still maintaining the stun.
Hmm.
And because it puts their partner into waiting state, they can't burst out of that either. So you do get a confirmed full combo with the restand stun. There are a couple other ways that you can restand after stun, but the thing that most people don't realize about those is that they all reset partner into ready state, even when they're stunned. So you can burst out of those. But George does not. So that is one good thing here about SP2 that is really unique, I'd say. But like you said, it's 2 meter for this one thing that's okay on certain characters or certain partners, I should say. And yeah, there's not much else to say about it other than that. You don't get a cool like restand combo or anything. There's no like cool links that you can do off of it. It's just literally you do fucking 2B, 2C, 6C, level 2, uh 5B, 2C, or 5B, 2B, 5C partner. That's it. That's literally it.
Yeah, in some instances, maybe you could get like a George stun, but I'm actually noticing that like on a pretty standard confirm, it doesn't really look like you can without also spending like another George meter.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, you need two to get a stun usually, even with a jump in.
Yeah, I'm stunning George, funnily enough, but yeah, one of the people in our community he plays as Beatrice, so it effectively just turns Meta World into a free level 2. That's that's Beatrice's ability. So he basically just uses that to use George's level 2 for free, so to speak. And it's one of the few I think good things about George, but there's this term I've started to use for characters that can just you put resources in them and they get damage for their combos. I call them like meter dump characters. And George, is technically one, but he's really bad at it.
Yep.
Because you think, oh yeah, just dump meter and you get all this damage, and it's like, okay, sure, but when you compare, this is I think the problem with like George in general is you can maybe look at these and say, oh, some of this is occasionally functional, But compared to what? Who's George's competition? So it's kind of a
Yeah.
problem.
Hmm.
Like, cause I'm actually working. I mentioned this to you, guy, but for the if anyone actually listens to 2 hours of two men ranting about George and how he's not good up to for this long, right? It I'm actually working on something, and I've started to kind of come up with those archetypes, right? Of like who would you get to like construct a team, because there are different reasons to kind of pick everyone. But after everything you've taught me, and I know there's still like, the meta world you might want to go over and his ability, but those are pretty obvious tools without like a lot of without a lot of nuance to them. Maybe the ability a little more so. But it just seems like, why would you pick George over anyone else? As a meter
Yeah.
dump, I don't really understand. As a neutral, as a mix up,
No. No. Pressure? No. Basically, yeah, everything George does is either A, a gimmick, or B, done by somebody else and way better. And C, you know, like they get more reward off of it, which is the major thing, I think. Because as bad as George is, he could be the same, as awful, everything the same. If he just got like more reward off of his terrible gimmicks, I could see him being usable, at least being like, I know this character isn't as good as other characters, but hey, I like playing him. I'm good at him. I'm gonna do that. But like as it stands, even if you are good at him, even if you do like him, even if you put in the man hours to be the best George you can be, at the end of the day, you still don't get anything out of it. You don't even get any reward, really. And that's the worst part, really.
mm-hmm. I don't see the purpose. Yeah, like in what sort of, because there's a difference, right, between, oh well, this team isn't good, but at the very least they have a thing, right? You can actually find some interesting teams like that in this game that I'll be going over in my video coming up, right? But you don't really see a lot of that with George,
No,
because even if you apply like Zariat, who's the our kind of resident George player. I mean, you play him too, I guess, but I don't really see you play him anymore.
I don't really play him anymore.
Yeah, he pretty much just says, okay, I'm going to get those level twos and I'm going to add more damage. But Beatrice herself is already pretty good. So it kind of works. But this isn't like a, how do we make an optimal team? This is a, how do we fucking drag the anchor that is George, hopefully across the finish line?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, for the parry, I mean, the meta world into parry, it's money. It gives you a little bit of a combo.
No, no. Why? I've sat on this for a long ass time. George's meta makes zero sense. Zero. Absolutely no sense the way it is designed. Why does this aggressive mix up vortex pressure character have a reversal parry for his meta super? Now, if you wanted to have, you could have the exact same thing, the exact same animations, whatever, and even keep the core concept the same if it was just like a single big kick that he did that had like super armor or even like turned into like a hit grab, sort of like Ronos or something, maybe, where it goes into the animation, so that you had the same vague idea of him like baiting out a move or like potentially using it in that reversal situation. But if he could just combo into it like normally and get more damage out of that meta, that would be so much better, like infinity better than this niche situational, honestly kind of mediocre reversal option that requires meta, which your opponent can contest. So if you don't have meter advantage, you can't even use. Also, again, what reward do you get after landing this? Like 700 damage and an air combo, assuming they didn't refute you, because if they refute you on your meta declaration, then your meta runs out before you can get the full combo and they like tech out of the fucking parry, because guess what? Parry is a techable knockdown, not a fucking hard knockdown. It puts you into a juggle state, and a juggle state that has a techable knockdown, not a hard knockdown. So if Meta World runs out at the end of your parry, like because you got refuted, or you did it at the end of your Meta World, or whatever, they can tech out of it, and you get nothing. Good day, sir.
Yeah, I don't really realize why that's a thing.
It would be too good, I guess. And
Yeah,
it's
and
like, okay,
oh my god, and the meta takes so long too.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like I'm doing like literally full meter, 1 meter declaration, and it's like, here comes the buddy, here comes the chair, here comes the force, and then he's like, you have like 20% left.
Yep.
So yeah, you may as well just refute George's meta at least once. He won't get the full
Mm-hmm.
thing. That's pretty jank.
Yeah. And it's like, assuming you get it, you get an air combo, which is like whatever. You get like 1,000 damage. Pretty sure it's something like that. 1.2 maybe. Or you can spend your level 2, which is 3 meter base if they don't refute, and get, a grounded combo. So that's great. Hey man. You know how much damage Rono gets off of a fucking meta parry?
A lot.
Probably like 800.
Well, yeah, that's just the parry, not even like
Yeah.
the follow up because he stuns some characters.
Mm-hmm. Or if you get like a mid parry in the corner, you can combo into meta.
hmm
Yeah,
So,
so
it can't even be as simple as, hey, well, at least you get to parry them. That's
yep.
cool. It has to like have a bunch of dumb little caveats to it. That's good.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, so why is it like this? Why? Why? Why?
The
Why?
the
That's the
only
question.
the only real things I can say from the practical point of view of playing against various Georges, would Georges be called George I? I would have
Yeah.
say that just to be silly. Facing the various George I sounds like a fucking plant. Okay, it's not funny. Not funny. Um, I can only say that sometimes George will just do all this stuff, and because his stuff is so bad, and you start to just realize you can disrespect like a lot of gimmicks. Like he can just start to meta there and then parry you and get a little bit off of it, but that's it. It's not. It should be
Yeah,
something else, you know.
it's one of those situations where, like you said, everything is so bad that a good player will be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna start like disrespecting some shit, and then you get into like the literal meta world of like George players being like, okay, well, I know that this isn't good, so I'm going to counter this thing. So I'm going to act as though you know that I know that you know. And then I'm going to do this other thing because you're expecting me to do this thing because it's slightly better than this other thing. So you won't expect me doing this thing that's not good.
Yeah, it's like you know how bad 6B is after 2B? Well, guess what? I'm going to do it and then I'm going to meta and then parry you because you're going to 2A out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It is a little silly and not good because keep in mind the meta world deck, you might say, "Oh, well, I get to win." Huh? No. Well, once George starts to say, "Okay, well, I suspect you're going to poke out and I'm going to spend this meta world timer and a meter resource to guess." It's like, "Well, you get one guess. That's it." And then that's
Yeah.
over. So,
Because it's a hard read. You know,
mhm.
it's not like a reaction most of the time. And even when you're in meta, a lot of characters, a lot of good characters, or I'm just gonna say characters. Most characters, when they're in meta, they have their meta ability, and some are more useful than others. Rosa, case in point. But like, at least Rosa can just like have a situation where she's like, I'm gonna do my meta and get some value out of it. George, if he does not get the meta declare parry on his hard read, what is he going to do? Randomly throw out his parry that has like a fucking eternity recovery?
Yeah,
You
he has
know?
to push up his glasses, dude.
Mm-hmm. It's like, okay. it's like, oh dang, well, I missed that hard read, but I'm gonna get that next hard read. It's like, okay, I'm glad you went through all that effort to again get like 700 damage or whatever. And then also because you missed the first one, it's probably going to be the end of meta, which means like I said, they get to tech out, you don't get any follow-up. Yep.
I want to point out too that there are other characters like Canon comes to mind where he just has a reversal as his meta.
Mhm.
So it's like you can just do the reversal at other times to be good, and it also does like a wall
Yeah,
slam, and you
and
can't
it's
tech.
also a combo. You can put it in combos. Like I
Yep.
said, like why isn't it just some fucking big ass kick that has like armor or like a parry element to it?
Mhm. It's really
Doesn't
a
make
missed
any sense.
opportunity. Considering how many other missed opportunities George has, it's kind of tragic at this point. Is
Like literally, you know?
so George's ability, patience. Now,
Absolute garbage.
yeah,
Unusable.
okay, yes, most of the time. Against some zoners, you could say, I'm not going to go in, I'm going to neutral tag, and then they're going to hit me. To those that don't know, when George, when you have George's ability, it gives the character on point meter as well as your reserve. So it's just extra meter generated, but it's for blocking only. So,
Hmm.
at least you could almost like, if George just got more meter for getting hit, blocked, or, hit, at least you could just be like, yeah, if you just get your face rolled as George with patience on you, at least get meter. But
That would be something.
it'd be, I think that's accurate to the narrative, isn't it? Isn't George like he's not like a very confrontational person or something, or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Not in the real world.
Mhm. So you know that's something to consider, I think.
Yeah, but it doesn't work like that. Basically, what happens is you get George ability, and here's the thing: in a void, as with most things that George does, you look at the ability and you're like, okay, I could see a situation where this is useful. But then you get into a match and you think about the practical application of these things that George has, and you're like, wow, the situations where this is applicable are almost non existent. Because to gain value from the ability, you have to have it active, of course. When do you have it active? When you declare meta. So, most of the time when you declare meta, it's when you are in advantage. You're comboing, or maybe you're extending a block string, or
Mm.
whatever. Or maybe you get a hard read and get your parry. That's advantage. So, you're not going to be blocking then. Uh, Maybe you declare in a neutral situation to avoid them declaring. Okay, one situation. We have one situation where maybe you can get some value out of patience.
Two.
Okay, what are the
Oh, I'm
two?
sorry. Good. I didn't know you were done, or you were not done. My apologies.
What are the other situations? You tag out. Okay, when do you tag out? Usually in like a mid to full screen neutral position, because you want to get some gray health, you want to get your partner in, he's got meter, you don't. Okay, hey, guess what? If your partner has meter, you don't need patience.
Yeah, and you're certainly not really going to play for that unless it's like a zoning team. Like if someone starts shooting projectiles at you, then you bring in your other character. Like, oh, okay, now I get the meter advantage for being shot.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's like if patience was more extreme, like to the point of cannon silent attack, or I don't know, even like what's another good example? I mean, like
Fragility
the
ability.
Virgilia ability, or even like to the same level degree as like Renove ability of like level of power. Then I could see it being used like or like useful maybe. Because then it's like, oh, well, they can't just throw out projectiles because I'm going to get a lot of meter. But it's not. It's not a lot of meter.
Mm.
Because no character in this game, even the ones that do a lot of projectiles, like Beatrice or Burn, you know, no character in this game is going to shoot enough projectiles to get you a lot of meter.
Well, at a high level, they're just not going to. They're going to
Yeah.
say, "Oh, I'm giving George a meter. I'm not going to stop." And it's like, okay, now George can rush you down. And it's like, whatever.
Or, I mean, it'll be your partner because you tagged out, right?
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
like, even
depending.
so.
Hmm. So
And it's like,
it's funny how that the parry and his ability. George doesn't really want to sit there and block and be defensive and wait. He wants to fucking go in and kill you to the best of his ability, to jump C at you. Because from the practical point, what really ends up happening in games is that George, his best situation is usually trying to jump C, jump B you. That's kind of it, and then he goes into his pressure, usually ending on 2C if he can safely, and then you guess whether you're going to jump out or get tagged by like the what's it the axe kick in the air, because that does catch people jumping out. So
you know,
that's kind of how George, or at least a sequence you'll often find George in. And when you look at how he practically plays, yeah, that ability doesn't really add much.
there's no
It's
synergy.
hmm
You know, his meta aspect has no synergy with the rest of his playstyle, his kit, his normals, his specials, everything about his game plan. There's no synergy. And it's like, oh, well, it's like, yeah, he's a very aggressive playstyle. And in the meta, he gets defensive options. But it's like, again, if you are in meta, when are you in meta and you want to be defensive? Meta
hmm
is an offensive tool 90% of the time. Outside of the situations where you get the hard read and you parry, you know, because you have that option.
I really like to bring up comparisons because there actually is a team that does use the meta very defensively. I don't. I know you haven't played for. I probably haven't played against my like Delano and Shannon, but I use that team and their abilities to actually function in that defensive capacity. And when you compare that to George, it's really goofy because, well, first of all, Shannon and Delano's ability last 15 seconds. So you hit the meta and you gain. If you get hit, you get 50% reduced damage, and then you also just get auto guard. And this is really good for Shannon and Delano because they're both kind of big, slow, bulky girls, right? They're very clunky, I'll say.
Hmm.
So that works out, and they both are 15-second white abilities, because the color of the ability, whichever, basically means its duration, and they're both white abilities, which are 15-second abilities. So you can actually just tap the meta world whenever you have it, and then continue playing the game, assuming you don't get punished. That is. And if they refute, well, they're down a meter. Okay. If they don't refute, then you have auto guard and you have 50% damage reduction for 15 seconds. So that's an example of like actual very good on paper. I don't think that team is like top tier, by the way, but because someone will be like, "Wow, you just have an extended 50% health," and it's like, yes, theoretically, but that team has those characters are really bad. But I
Yeah.
digress.
I mean, you bring up a good point, um, which even further cements how useless patience is. Um, the way that abilities work in this game when you meta declare is they don't both last for their entire duration. They actually both go away when the first ability runs out of duration. Guess what? Patience has one of the longest durations in the game, so no matter what partner you have, their ability is probably going to go out before patience ends, which means you are not even getting the full length and value of patience in the first place if you meta.
Oh, George has like it's like the 12 or 13 second one, I think.
Um, it's long. It's
Yeah.
one of the longest. Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. I didn't know that. I mean, it's good that he at least does have the long one. So, in the situations where you neutral tag, it'll stay. In a funny way, I kind of think that if you just reverse some of these ideas, George would be good. Not that he is, but I think
Oh yeah.
theoretically, turn patience
No.
into give more meter to the person attacking, then it's like, okay,
Yeah.
now
Like
George is good.
that's the great tragedy of George that I've always espoused. He's so close to being good in a variety of ways. If you just tweaked like any number of small things about him, he
Mhm.
would become so much better. He would become like a usable character, but all of these minor and some less than minor faults combined to make him the flaming garbage can that he is. And he's never going to be changed because the game is dead from a developer's standpoint.
I'm starting to think that George might actually be one of the worst characters in the game because I've
Yeah.
I've seen I've seen some Shannon loops because in my view, Anjay and Shannon are the worst characters in the game. But you know, Shannon's jump 2C and her jump C and Air Sakutaro, as someone in our community, Nora, has shown, you can be a little tricky with that stuff. And then
Hmm.
Anjay's quick low 2A, that stuff actually can catch you off guard here and there. And
Oh yeah.
Anjay's ability will actually stun you, which is not always good, but it can be good in some teams in some situations to get that extra chunk.
It's more widely applicable, that's for sure.
Yeah, like, I mean, I was actually talking to Nora today in the chat about that, how Anjay actually pairs very well with, funnily enough, very shitty characters who don't have a lot of damage because that they get to stun now. Assuming you have a decent Anjay, because that's the thing, right? There's often like two layers to the game. It's something again that I'm working on. Is that you have like a strategic layer, and then you have just a is how does this character handle when I'm playing them? Can I actually like fight people and win and do things? So
Hmm.
it's just funny because Anjay at least does that and has that trickiness to her. I don't think it's as good as the best trickiness in the game, but at least it's some trickiness. And Shannon
Right.
does, if you do meta loops perfectly, it's cool. She has, an ability that's okay. Some of her tools are, none of them I'd say are astounding, but at least they function. At least
Well, it's like,
compared to George.
yeah, and again, I want to say that I think what differentiates them between George is the fact that played at a high level, if their gimmicks or their trickiness works, they can get a reward.
Hmm.
Uh, Sometimes even a fairly substantial one.
Yeah.
You know, Sakutaro loops do a decent amount of damage. You know, Shannon meta loop does a decent amount of damage. You know, if you can get yourself into that situation from good play, you get rewarded. If you get yourself into a good situation with George, what are you rewarded with? Oftentimes, basically nothing.
Just a knockdown. Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been a very enlightening conversation. I knew that George wasn't really good in a lot of ways, but I kind of just looked at him as this. He's this jump 2C, this jump B, or jump C, jump B machine.
Mm.
And I was
Well,
like, and his 2C is plus when he's on the ground.
mm,
And that's kind of it for me.
I mean, in a lot of ways, that is pretty much the extent of the character.
In his rolling can be a little tricky.
Yeah. I think what happens is people get so used to disrespecting George that they get complacent. Like I said earlier, where you get into the situation of like, he knows, I know that he knows. And so people try and get impatient and punish this role shenanigans, you know, because they're like, ah, this isn't real. And the thing about roll mix up on a hard knockdown is it is kind of real. If you do the safe option, it's safe. You know, you will meaty them. So you can't just disrespect that. If you try and get tricky with it, that's when you get punishable.
Mhm.
So I think that's what what can trip people up in that situation.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I think we've covered pretty much everything. In conclusion, George is a bizarrely designed amalgamation of conflicting and contradictory design decisions that basically amount to zero internal synergy, minimal to zero team synergy. Uh, his options do not contribute to the game plan that they seem designed to encourage. Most of his situations and techniques, setups, are not real. They are gimmicks. Once you know how to beat them, you will be able to get out of them every time, theoretically. And even if he succeeds in his bizarrely convoluted and, again, contradictory design, even if he succeeds in that strategy and outplays his opponent, the reward that he receives is so minimal that it is basically not worth it.
Mm-hmm. Not a lot of like shining points to just be like, hey, here's this really cool thing to just be like, hey, let's pick this guy. I like this one tool, or you know,
Yep.
it's a shame. It really is.
Yeah. There, like I said, so many ways that the character could be improved. And it wouldn't even need to be too many, just a couple.
Hmm.
And he would become so much better. He would become pretty, like, viable, I'd say, in this imaginary world. But as it stands, yeah.
Yeah, it's curious too. As you mentioned the team composition, I would like to emphasize this because whenever I usually play everyone once if they're new to the community and no one's giving them a game. I don't really want them just to have an impression that like no one will ever play them. So I'll usually play them. Who knows? They might have good fundamentals or something. And oftentimes, if I play someone and they're new and they're not as good, I'll try to play a new team, like some sort of composition or idea, some strategy between two characters and their synergy. But despite the fact that I like to do this, I actually have never really played people with George because, I know how to play George. I'm not super well versed on like the 2B 5C after like 6C timings, but whatever, everything else is pretty easy to do about George. And I've
Yeah.
never really just thought, oh man, here's this really good George composition. So that lack of having him on a team or a reason to have a team is like even some characters that I think are lower on the list, like Virgilia, who's capable. She's capable, but that doesn't necessarily mean she's good. But she has a really good ability. And if sometimes I just watch Virgilia players like sitting full screen, and I think, you're not at full meter on both your characters. If you just neutral tag to like that battler and sat there, you just gain like 0.75 of a meter on both characters over time. You should just do that. And so I could definitely at least sometimes watch people and think of these ideas or these plans and think, I wonder how I could do that, or maybe I'll try that against someone. But there's nothing really like that with George that just makes me think, oh man, here's that thing, he lacks that edge, that he's so mediocre.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's a lot of times, even if characters kind of suck, like let's say Delano and Shannon aren't the best, they can oftentimes find their OTP in the game, or someone that just functions really well with them, that they have something interesting, and that's one of the reasons I like the game, and I think you too. It's just that it has some of those fun things. But yeah, hard to find that with George, except I guess Beatrice, as Zarya has tried to show. But
Yeah, Beatrice and Rono, very slightly, I'd say. But
oh
that's
yeah,
just because Rono is pretty good in general. And if you have a way to confirm stun on Rono, it's just super good. And that is, again, one of the best aspects of George's level 2, being able just to confirm that stun.
mm,
But
Yeah,
other than that, yeah, I don't see much.
part of that list I'm thinking about is how I've noticed that the top six, the A tier characters, which I don't really do the whole SS plus SSS plus because that shit's stupid. But A to D, right? Like a normal grading scale. The best characters, the top six characters, they kind of blend into almost every team. So I think it's kind of like you said, Ronove is just good in general, and that just saying, well, hey, George plus best character in the game is a team that I can get wins with. It doesn't necessarily it's not necessarily attributed to George, which I think is why we put him on the bottom of the list, especially the talk about how um, some people have just been like, oh, well, it's a team game, so what's the point, right? It's like, well, actually, the team game is composed of two very specific components that you can, in fact, analyze. And when you analyze George, even in the context of what he adds to a team, which you can do, it's not some, you know, mystical, ineffable quality, right? Where you just, oh, it's unmeasurable. We can never know. It's like, well, no, this is George. This is half of the team. And yeah, you could see through this, was it 2 hour long plus analysis at this point that, yeah, it's not exactly adding a whole lot to anyone or any reason to pick him. So, but any
Yeah.
final closing thoughts before we turn this off here?
Um, George is fat and had to buy his girlfriend. The end.
Excellent. I'm kind of sad because I never got very far in the visual novel, right? And my first impression of George was from the game that is the fighting game. And I was like,
Hmm.
yeah, George is like this. He looks like this pretty cool slim chick, or not chick. Wow, this cool slim dude, right? He hooks up with Shannon. It's whatever. But then I read the visual novel with like the original sprites, and I'm like, yeah, I see now why the George is fat. Like, I think that it'd be cool if George were like even more chubby in this, just be like, yeah, he's just this big dude.
Yeah. Well, they prettied him up in the revamped sprites. So I don't know. Pretty boys sell more copies, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, gives a different impression of the character as we've spoken about before.
Hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
I
but
mean, his dad is fat. He's fat. I mean, it makes sense, right?
yeah, his dad is heavy set, huh?
Hmm.
Well, yeah, I don't have much to add. I kind of already. I'm not a George master, but I do play the game. So I've through osmosis and learning how to defeat George, I have learned, the things that work. And I went into trading mode. I look at everyone's normals just to beat them in neutral, right? And some of the data on them if it's really troubling. But yeah, beyond that, I don't really have much to say. He's the basic. Like I said earlier, the sequence of yeah, jump CB, it's good. Make people block your two Cs when you can, and yeah, that's kind of what it comes down to. He's just not that great at it. But yeah, uh, apparently George is fat and had to buy his girlfriend. Sounds meaningful. But all
Well,
right, we're going on almost. Was this 2 hours and something? I can't read the little number down there. But yeah, it's been quite a while. So I think this is a good spot to end it.
already.
All right. Well, thank you, Guy, for rambling about George and how bad he is for 2 hours. Maybe someone will actually listen to it or watch it. If not, it's out there. Um,
Hmm. No problem. Thanks for having me. I told you doubted me. I told you I could rant about him for like an hour at
well,
least.
I didn't necessarily doubt you. I was more like, can you really? Was this sarcasm? I don't doubt it, but
Hmm.
is that something? How much about George is really bad? I didn't really realize the extent to how awful so many of his tools were. So
Well, I'm glad, I'm always a proponent of sharing information, so I'm glad that I could share this knowledge that I have obtained over years of playing this terrible character.
yeah,
Desperately trying to make him good.
in the future, I'm actually considering getting various members of the community to just do this kind of style of this back and forth. This hey, you play this character. How about you talk about it to the world, kind of thing.
Hmm.
I would
Yeah.
hope that Larry, we could get Larry on here and see what he has to say. You know, he's not as social, I think, or at least we don't talk to him as much as everyone else. But I think that would be fun.
Sounds pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, so we could have various people who like to talk about their characters or have information, and hopefully something worth saying, right? But yeah, I guess that's it. Um, we had our final closing thoughts. So all right, goodbye everyone. Oh God, it just
Goodbye.
occurs to me I'm gonna have to do this. If you have anything to say, feel free to leave it in the description. Yes, that is the thing people say when they make videos, right? For
Yeah.
feedback, which we're
In the
open to.
comments?
Yeah, in the comments, right? Because we'll be posting this to YouTube. So
Yeah.
yeah, feedback is interesting. Somehow I doubt very many people are actually going to listen to 2 hours and 30 minutes of us.
Make sure to like and subscribe for more content.
Oh, oh. Anyway, but yeah, so we're willing to listen to feedback. I might do a few more of these, depending on the result and how willing people are.
Yep. Well, we'll see you later then.
Yeah, goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.